Today we have a very special guest, Sam Bencheghib, founder of Sungai Watch and Sungai Design. Sam and his companies have collected over 5 million pounds of trash the last 5 years and has since repurposed all this plastic waste into design products through Sungai Design. On the episode, we talk about his journey, entrepreneurship, as well as his adventures like running across America in plastic shoes. Hope you enjoy. Sam, it's an absolute pleasure. I think to kick things off, I want to start by thanking you on behalf of Planet Earth for all your work, man, making up for guys like me that barely know the difference between recycling and a trash can. And your mission has inspired so many. So genuinely thank you, on behalf of Planet Earth and the thousands and thousands of people that you're making up for.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Great to have you in the factory. You know, this is where we recycle river trash into these pieces of furniture. So this is my life. I now jump in dirty rivers, work with trash, and that's kind of been my life for the last 10 years. So good to have you here.
Yeah. Walk us through where we are right now. So listeners, if they're not watching, have an idea of, the facility and production site.
So we're in Bali, Indonesia. This is where I grew up. I've been here for 20 years. And, Bali is this beautiful paradise. You see like these incredible images on Instagram and online. But really, when you go into deep Bali, you get to see the reality, which is that there's no waste management and so much trash enters rivers. And that's where most of ocean plastics come from. 90% of plastics in the ocean come from rivers. So, we've sort of been looking at ways to give back. How can we make sure that Bali stays Bali? And how can we make sure that Bali stays beautiful? And to us, as kids with my 2 siblings, we thought the easiest way we can do that is by cleaning up with our own 2 hands. So we've been cleaning Bali's rivers really for the last 15 years, but with this new company, Sungai Watch, for the last 4.5. And so this factory where we are in today is Sungai Design. So we've been cleaning rivers at Sungai Watch, our nonprofit, for 5 years. We've now collected almost 7 million pounds of plastics in that short amount of time. And so much of it has nowhere to go. After collecting trash for years and years, we realized that nobody wanted to take our dirty trash. So we decided to start a new company called Sungai Design and buy the plastic from the nonprofit and find ways to convert the plastic into products. And so we're sitting on our first product that we launched a year ago, which is a chair made from 2,000 plastic bags. And so behind us, we have a mountain of plastic bags, probably 30,000 bags behind us. That were all handpicked one by one in the river, sorted by color. And so, this is the factory where we bring clean trash that's been sorted, and this is where we convert everything.
The chair I can vouch for is extremely comfy, and I feel like I'm sitting in Knowles. It's like beautifully designed.
Thank you.
And quite unbelievable that it came from plastic in a river in Bali. So obviously, like, your mission is one that's extremely admirable. You've built 2 companies with your siblings, and we'll jump into that. But off the top, from our conversations, one of my favorite moments that you've shared is when you were raising awareness for plastic pollution running across America. January 2020, you're hundreds of miles into the race, and you've applied for this contest to win an apartment in New York City. Walk me through that experience, just to set the stage.
Sure. So this is, I guess, to give some context, only 400 people have run across America. So it's a very difficult thing to do. It takes, months. And so I'm 5 months into this run, and I'm exhausted. I'm beat up. I've been running a marathon a day every single day for 5 months. And I'm sitting in my RV because I did it supported. So I had a crew that came and followed me. Just one guy, actually, who was filming and driving the RV. But I'm sitting in my RV having breakfast at 5 a.m. and it's a YouTube video. And it's a video done by Casey Neistat, a YouTuber, Ryan Serhant, who's a real estate agent, and Dude with Sign, Seth. And It's just a video of them three essentially announcing, you know, do you want to live in New York for a year? Do you have a dream and you need to be in New York for this? Apply to this contest and we'll give you a 1 year free in New York and a fancy apartment and we'll pay for everything. And so, you know, I'm in this run 5 months in. I have no idea what's going to happen when I finish my run. I hadn't planned that far yet. All I thought about was LA, get to the Pacific Ocean. So I apply and I'm just like, you know, taking a selfie, running across America, saying, hey guys, I'm running across America. And I want to move to New York. I want to build a media company. So before Sungai Watch, we built a media company to try to raise awareness about this issue of how can we solve plastic pollution and climate change through other people's great work. And I thought that I needed to be in New York for this. I needed to be like in the heart of, you know, the business world so I could meet other leaders that were fighting climate change and build a media company and try to raise their voice. And so I applied and, you know, I thought this would never work. Like it's one of these things that's like the lottery, you never think you get. But I'm probably like 10 days away from finishing my run and I get a phone call and it's Joe, who's Ryan's assistant. And so I just pick up the phone and I'm like, hey, who's this? As I'm running. And he's like, oh, this is Joe. I'm Ryan's assistant. I just wanted to let you know you made it to the top 10 of the contest. 28,000 people applied. And I'm like, what? This is crazy. Like I freak out, obviously. But in my head, I'm thinking the 9 other candidates must be the most incredible people in the world. There's no way I win this. And so he asks me, where are you going to be on Friday at 2 p.m.? I'm going to send you a package and that's going to be your last test. I'm like, well, it's Tuesday and I'm running 25 miles a day. So, you know, somewhere on Highway 62, 75 miles away.
You get airdrop a little package or something.
I had no idea what was going to happen. And so Friday, 2 p.m. hits. Obviously, I'm running on Highway 62. Nothing happens. But then I realized, wait, there's a time difference between New York and LA. So maybe he's talking about 2 p.m. New York time, 2 p.m. LA time hits. Nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't win this contest. Like it was a shot in the dark. There's no way I was going to win this anyways. But as I'm running, it's like 2:30 p.m. and I start to see like a figure in the distance. And there's no one on the highway. During the 5 months of me running across America, I very rarely saw another human standing on the highway. Like there's really no reason for anyone to be there.
Yeah.
And I get closer and closer. And as I get closer, I'm like, wait, that guy's holding a sign up over his head. And then as I get closer, I'm like, wait, is that dude with sign? I get closer and it actually is Seth, dude with sign, holding a sign that says you win.
Wow.
And yeah, I literally jumped into his arms. I didn't even know what was happening. But him and Ryan Serhant were there and they just said, you know, like you win, like you finish your run in 6 days and we want you to come to New York and live there for a year for free.
Wow.
And then I moved there and literally 2 days later, COVID hit.
Oh my God. We actually moved to New York City at the same time.
Really?
I moved
there in
in
2020?
early January 2020.
Yeah, what a time to be in New York.
Oh my God, man.
Yeah.
It felt like a wasteland. It's such a beautiful story, man, because at least in my perspective, you have 3 very reputable people that fly across the country to invest in your story and show up in a way that is exciting. And for you to be 5 months in, running up on these guys, see them and just embrace them with open arms. Like it's beautiful, man.
I was on the highest high I have ever been. I've been chasing that high like for since then. Just like the endorphins and like the energy and like the excitement of finishing a 6-month run is already insane. And then finding out you win a free apartment in New York at 22 years old, you're like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a really cool experience. I got, you know, closest to the team and like seeing, at 22 years old, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I got to New York, tried to start the media company, but COVID hit. So it was very difficult to go out and shoot. So I was struggling. I was trying to do a documentary about my run. But it was very hard to fundraise because I couldn't have in-person meetings. But I think, you know, blessing in disguise is kind of what led us here. And so after COVID, moved back to Bali and we started Sungai Watch. We wanted to have a more on-the-ground impact when it comes to plastic pollution. And I think that year in New York taught me so much, you know, like seeing Ryan Serhant, he's like the hardest worker I've ever met. He's a beast. So just, seeing the way that like his work ethic, like meeting his team and just like being in New York, there's an energy of being in New York that I had not really felt before. And I know you know this too, because, coming from Kansas, like New York is like an incredible place where you just like, you arrive in New York. When I land today, I still go there 2-3 times a year. Like, and I'm in the cab on the way to my apartment, and I'm just like, whoa, like it just hits you.
The energy.
Yeah.
Why do you think those 3 guys selected you? Over 20,000 applicants, obviously some extremely special stories as part of that, and you were selected. What do you think they saw in you?
I mean, I watched back the video like actually a couple of months ago. I think it was just the fact that what I was doing was so crazy at the time. I could have been in LA and made a video talking about what I wanted to do, and it would have been very different. But because I'm literally running in the video saying, "Hey guys, what's up? I'm running across America," I think they told me some of the other applicants were incredible. One person was a person on a wheelchair that was trying to make New York City more accessible to people in wheelchairs. Like, that's an incredible story. But I think maybe the fact that, this is also, for them, this is also kind of like a marketing thing for the building. So them flying out to California in the middle of the desert to find me also makes for a very good video.
For sure.
And the video is very funny. Like, if you watch the video that Ryan posted,
amazing,
it's hilarious. I like jump in Seth's arms and like I have a beard and long hair. I look like I'm 50 years old, but I'm 22. I think it made for a good video, and I think they just liked the dedication and the hard work towards the cause. And I think that's I think to my credit and to our credit with my 2 siblings is like we've never given up. And no matter how hard something is, like how big the mission combating plastic pollution may seem, we always celebrate the small wins. And, we're just getting started. This is a tiny factory here in Bali, but there's so much more to go. And I think we just have to keep trying.
I think a common thread that I've seen in our interactions and also just like reading about your story is there's a lot of people that say that they're going to do something. And to your point, you were doing it, right? Like you had proactively raised a campaign and put yourself out there to the world. And I think at one point you tore your left Achilles tendon, like you were going through it. But at the same time, man, it's so, impactful and inspiring to see somebody that's out there actually putting in the work and putting their money where their mouth is. So I agree, man. They saw that in you, and what a good investment.
No, thank you. I mean, it is, we're not doing this for the money, but like I was completely broke at the time, so I needed this apartment.
It's the only way you were getting to New York.
It was the only way. No way I would have been able to afford an apartment after running across America with no job.
Yeah.
Trying to start a media company as a broke filmmaker. But no, I think, we are just trying our best. And, looking back, it's crazy to think how much has happened in the last 5 years. I finished my run 5 years ago, pretty much to the day. And, you asked me 5 years ago or 4 years ago at the end of the apartment, what are you going to do? Absolutely no way in hell I would have told you I'm sitting here with Luke in a plastic recycling factory making furniture. Like, I know nothing about furniture.
Yeah, it's a wild story, man. It's super cool to see and be here and see you in your element. So after the run, you moved to New York. You're there for about a year. Walk me through Make a Change World and building the media company, lessons from that and how that informed the next chapter of your life.
I mean, very interesting to start anything. But even more so when you're super young, you know nothing about business or starting a company. I mean, I studied business in university. So did my sister. My brother's originally a filmmaker, so he's super talented. He worked for Vice on HBO, so he had like great background and experience with filmmaking, and he taught me everything he knew. I think starting a media company is all about, because you can tell great stories, but it's how do you make it profitable as a business? And that's what we were struggling with, especially during COVID. So we learned so much about storytelling. And I think the world of social media and filmmaking and storytelling has just changed so much over the last few years. We were focused on 3-minute videos. At the time, that was short. And, people were telling us, how do you get someone's attention in the first 3 seconds? Even then, we were speaking about that.
Wow.
And I think probably the biggest lesson learned is just how to tell our story. We weren't telling our story at the time. We were telling other people's stories. But I think just being a good storyteller is probably one of the most important skills you can have in today's business world, because then you can sell yourself. And that's marketing 101, is how do you sell your product? How do you sell your business or your brand? And from day one of cleaning rivers with Sungai Wash, we were filming. And so we filmed with our phones, with our cameras, and just uploaded online straight away. And I really credit our background in filmmaking, even if it was unsuccessful at the time, to the success of both Sungai Wash and Sungai Design, because we know how to tell a good story in a very short amount of time. When we launched Sungai Design exactly a year ago, I have a video on my Instagram that I posted just about the process that got 196 million views. And I think that's literally just by being transparent and telling our story, but knowing how to tell that story in a very short amount of time and choosing the right visuals, picking the right words and knowing what song to add and simple things like that. But I think being in New York, running Make It Change Worlds, because it was a struggle, there's so much time to brainstorm and reflect on what I really wanted to do. And as much as I was thinking how to make money with the media, like what are some stories and films that I can make that I'm maybe less interested in, but I need to do because I need to pay myself, I always gravitated back to the impact. And that was really what I wanted to do. It was like, should I make this documentary about fireflies with this farm that's trying to pay me $1,000? Or should I focus on coming up with the next project that's going to have a lot more impact? And I think I always gravitated towards impact. And I think my two siblings are very similar to that. And I think that's how we are probably most similar, is the three of us are so passionate. And it's pretty beautiful that we all sort of came together and decided to start Sungai Wash together.
Why do you think in a city like New York, where there's people that are constantly chasing like that next thing, whether it be wealth, clout, status, did you land on a place of that exposure and choosing impact? Seeing from the outside looking in, somebody that was exposed to that and chose the path of impact is something that we don't see in our generation ever. And I think people want to do that, but it's really hard to. So I'm curious for you, like what led that mission of impact and purpose to not chase all those other things?
I mean, that's a great question. I think we are chasing those things, to be honest. I think we are chasing those things in different ways, but I think having lived in New York and my brother having lived in New York, although we are focused on the impact space, we're still very much like, what's the next thing? How do we get bigger? How do we have more impact? And I think part of that also is because we're young and just hungry and we want to be successful and we want to have as much impact as possible. But the reason people don't choose impact and, something like Sungai Wash is because the first 3 years were a huge struggle. Like we didn't make any money. We didn't pay ourselves a salary. So it felt like the media company wasn't really working and we weren't really making our money. We started Sungai Wash. It was almost worse. Like there was no money involved in trash. But I think over time, and I really believe this, no matter how, like, if you work really hard and you really love something, you will make it work. And I think that's what we really saw with Sungai Wash. It's only pretty recently, I think 2 years ago, where something clicked and it was like, okay, now we have something that really works. We have our sponsorship model figured out. The operation is running really smoothly. And now it's time to scale. And how do we grow from one small operation that we have that's working really well? And how do we bring that, to 3, to the entire island? Eventually, how do we bring that outside of Bali and to other islands? And so I think we do kind of still have that, that sort of sight and target towards something bigger. And I think especially with the space that we're working in, which is plastic pollution, it actually, I don't necessarily credit that to New York. It's just that we can clean a river and the next day it's back. We try to scout new regions to operate in. We go to Java and it's 5 times worse than Bali. And so no matter how much we grow, no matter how much impact we have, the scale of the problem is so big that we need to just press the fast forward button and just not sleep and just get to work. And I know it's like, maybe that's like the New York mentality, which I know you've experienced in finance. But for me, it's also more of just like, the problem is so big, we can't stop now.
Yeah.
Like, we can't celebrate the successes and say, great, we've done it. We need to like double down and go even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I think now you might be focused on those things that like the New York mentality breeds you. But 3 years, man, of being in the trenches and working on something that has purpose and impact, when you are obviously extremely capable as a storyteller, you know, you're highly intelligent, you have high agency, and you probably could have done a lot of things. So the choice to have, you know, options to pursue something else and spend 3 years building this company with your brother and sister is like an extremely noble one. I'm curious, one, how you got through those first couple of years, and how the company built over time. So walk me through, you know, the origin story of being, you know, next to your family home, hopping in a river, picking up some trash, and like igniting that fire within you.
Yeah. So I was actually in my fancy New York City apartment, on the 70th floor, looking out at New York, on a phone call with my brother. And we were just kind of struggling with the media, not paying ourselves. I think our salary at the time was $1,000 a month. We were paying ourselves $1,000 a month, living in New York City. So I made $12,000 that year. Living in New York City, good luck.
Better than some.
Good luck.
Yeah.
So, you know, that like just paid for like my pasta and my rice and my veggies. But and I was kind of on the phone with him and we were just thinking like, what's the next thing? And he had sort of being very like involved with the community cleanups, just because that's what we've always done since we were teenagers. We've always been on like hosting and organizing cleanups. And he kind of like said, you know, like, what if we start cleaning rivers? And he was the one that first jumped in the river, first sort of came up with the first barrier system within a German engineering firm that was in Bali at the time, helped us build the first system. And then as I was like trying to do the media thing in New York and it wasn't really working, and he jumped into the river and collected, you know, 50 kilos after the first catch. Then the next day he sent me a photo, it was another 50 kilos. You know, like that moment I wanted to like drop everything and fly to Bali, but I couldn't because of COVID. So for the first few weeks and months, he was alone here, sort of just doing this cleanup of the river by himself. And then I think when we could fly to Bali, as soon as we could, my sister and I flew in and we sort of brainstormed together, how do we take this to the next level, and had to really think about the strategy. How do we set up as a nonprofit? Because this is nonprofit work. We can't have a company doing this. We can accept donations, which is something we had never experienced, the world of philanthropy before. How do you convince someone to give you money and expect nothing in return?
Tough
just
game.
I mean, I guess our business is cleaning for you, because technically what we were doing should be government work. But so we started getting really good support early on from the local hospitality sector here in Indonesia, or here in Bali. You know, hotels, restaurants, obviously seeing the problem firsthand, seeing, you know, these 3 young kids cleaning rivers. They're like, how can I support? And so we thought about this idea of, what if we allow these companies to sponsor one barrier? And we put their logo on it. It's a 1-year sponsorship. And we send them a report of a photo before we clean it, a photo after we clean it. And that's a great sort of showcase of their money going to use. We weigh the trash on site so we know exactly how much we collected. And that's kind of the model that has grown into what we do today, which is we can sponsor a barrier for $6,000 for a year. We've now installed 300 of those barriers, and that's how we've paid for the staff that we operate. So we have 155 full-time team members. And very quickly that model has changed to, we don't want to deal with 300 sponsors. That's quite a lot to, be on email exchange with. And also it's quite hard to convince 300 individual people. What if we pick regions and a company can now sponsor a region? Also, bigger budgets started coming in. We got our first grants. And we're like, okay, there's money out there in the world. People would be willing to sign $100,000 check to support our work, which to us seems so insane. But no, there actually is so much money in the philanthropy space. Last year alone, 2024, $550 billion were given away in the US alone in philanthropy. So there's a lot of money out there that is being given for good causes, for social causes. And that's just the US, which is the biggest nonprofit, very generous people, givers. It's part of the culture.
New Yorkers, maybe.
New Yorkers, they have too much money.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do with
it out of their hands.
But so I guess, when I first came here and sort of saw the barrier, it just seemed like it really just clicked and it felt so natural. It was like, this makes sense. We have found a solution that works. It's so simple but efficient. And that actually is the beauty of what we do, is that it is very cheap and super scalable. We're working with a pipe that floats on the surface of the water, a metal grid that sits beneath the surface of the water. And then we catch most of the floating trash. Our teams jump in every day. We collect that trash, bring it back to our sorting centers, start sorting the trash. At the beginning, we didn't really realize the value of sorting, but very quickly, if you want to recycle the trash, because anyone can install a barrier, clean the trash, and just throw it in a landfill. But in Indonesia, landfills are typically mismanaged. They're not sanitary landfills. So they're just next to a river, and every time it rains, that just falls back in. So we realized the value of sorting very quickly to reduce the amount of waste we collect that goes to landfill. And then sort of like everything fell into place. We realized that, there's actually 30 materials that we're collecting, and every material has value and can be upcycled or recycled in something that could last forever because it's plastic. So we sort of fell with plastic bags because it's the number one type of plastic we collect. It's about 40% of the weight of everything we collect in rivers. Today, we're collecting about 10 to 12,000 pounds of plastics a day. And 40% of that is this. And nobody in Indonesia recycles plastic bags. So then we just started the journey of what does it mean to recycle bags? How does it work? How do you take a malleable product and turn it into something that's sturdy? And once you have a sheet or something sturdy, what can you make with it? So we were really working with the limitations of the material, and eventually realized that furniture might be a good option because it's very big, it's bulky, so we could recycle as much of it into one. Mm-hmm. And it has a high value. So we can sell you a chair that's made from trash for $960, which is what you're sitting on.
I think it's worth double that, man, based off how I'm feeling right now. How did storytelling become a part of this journey? I think obviously your experience with the media company, joining your brother here, at what point did that really start lifting up the story and getting more manpower in the rivers?
Yeah. I mean, as I said before, since day one, we filmed everything. And we're lucky because we work in a space that is very visual. So you can see and notice a very dirty river where you don't even see the surface of the water, covered in trash. We'll jump in, with 10, 20 people. Sometimes, we have thousands of people that join our cleanups and clean that river within 5 hours. And so seeing the before and after is extremely rewarding. And so I think the sort of, the thing that really clicked for us was time lapses. Just seeing that river go from a dirty river to a clean river within 5 seconds. The moment we posted our first time lapse, we just started seeing an increase in followers, an increase in engagement, an increase in donations. And because we work in a space that's so visual, I think people inherently want to help. They're like, wow, like you can clean this river. How many rivers could you clean if I give you this much money? And so because we have this storytelling background, we realize that we have a very visual problem in front of us. And I think plastic pollution is one thing that no one can really argue is a good thing. You know, climate change, you have some climate deniers out there that think climate change isn't real. Because it's hard to say, are the temperatures really changing? How do we really see what's happening or what's going to happen in 5 to 10 to 20 years? Same with a lot of other issues, but plastic pollution, it's in your face. You live next to a river that's covered in trash. It smells bad. You can get diseases from it because of all the toxic chemicals that get dumped into rivers. And people burn trash in Indonesia. 60% of trash in Indonesia is burnt. This smell actually that you can smell right now is probably burning trash from our neighbors. And
A little bonfire.
and so, you know, that causes some serious damage. People say that inhaling burning trash is 3 times worse than smoking cigarettes.
Wow.
Because you're not just dealing with nicotine, you're dealing with all sorts of chemicals that is in the plastic. So it's very, very toxic and harmful for you. And 60% of trash in Indonesia is burnt openly. So by cleaning rivers, by offering better waste management infrastructure in the villages that we operate in, you know, we don't just tick the plastic pollution, this river's clean box, but we tick health, we tick, you know, lifestyle improvement, working directly with communities, education. So there's a lot of, and I think that's what we're pivoting to now is it's great to clean rivers, but how do we make sure trash doesn't end up in rivers in the first place? And so what Sungai Watch looks like it's pivoting to now, if you could ask me where is Sungai Watch in 3 years, 5 years, I'd say we would probably get more into household waste and waste management. How do we teach Indonesia how to manage its waste? And if we can teach Bali how to manage its waste, we can use this approach and replicate it to the rest of Indonesia and to the rest of the developing world. And the global south, because 2 billion people on this planet don't have access to waste management.
Wow.
So how do we figure out, you know, what is the best method? And to be honest, we're not going to come up with it. People are doing it very well. In New York, the New York City Department of Sanitation, you know, they're doing an incredible job. They have 10,000 lane miles to cover every single day to cover New York City's trash because they just go back and forth into the grid. And that's a huge amount of logistics that's required to create a really good waste management infrastructure. And so for that, you need a lot of money. And so how do you come up with creative ways to fund the operation? And we think it's in the products.
Wow. Yeah. On your initial point with the storytelling being like visual, I also think it's relatable. Like everyone knows, you know, most people know what a beach is. They've been to a beach, and having trash in the beach is obviously not ideal. And so seeing a time lapse, one, you see very quickly what's happening. Yeah. Bali is also a name that a lot of people recognize as, you know, a beautiful destination. And so when you counter that and you take a hard position as this is what's going on in Bali behind closed doors, I think it's like almost a chokehold on people's, you know, attention. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great point. Bali is a brand. And I think if we had started this in the middle of Java, Indonesia, I don't think we would have had, it would have been successful, but we wouldn't have had the direct success that we've had or the quick growth because people love Bali. And, you know, you have, I forget the number, you know, it might be around 7 or 8 million visitors per year, but all those visitors see the problem firsthand. If you walk on the beach, you're going to see plastic, and it's been getting worse every year. In Bali, we have 2 seasons. We have a dry season and a wet season, and we're ending the wet season right now. And when it rains, that means all the trash from the rivers is flooding into the ocean. And there's sort of an occurrence or something that happens every year at the beginning of the year where all the trash from Java's rivers come to Bali and they just wash up on the shores of West Bali. And this year it was like a crazy moment where we've been cleaning this beach for 15 years and we've been seeing it firsthand get progressively worse. And this year it was layers and layers of trash, you know, up to 3 feet of just entangled plastic with wood and
in the water,
covering the beach. You couldn't even see the sand. And so we posted one video saying, "This is what Jimbaran looks like. Come tomorrow and help us clean this up." And we had 2,000 people show up the next day, which is insane.
Within 24 hours.
Yeah, it was crazy.
What?
I mean, we cleaned it probably for a day or two, but very quickly. It was like Bali came together and wanted
People
to help.
reacted within
Yeah.
24 hours. Like you gave the heads up.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I think, and that's, as you said, people relate to it. They love the beach. They love the ocean. Bali has incredible surfing. But if you speak to every surfer that's surfed in Bali's ocean, will tell you it's the worst feeling when you're paddling and you're paddling through plastic bags. And sometimes you never know, like we find syringes in our trash. So it's not just a clean plastic bag like this that you're talking about diapers and potential sharp objects. That's really dangerous. So I think, as you said, it's very relatable and people want to see an end to it. And so we need to clean it up. But I think that's really not where it ends. You can clean it every day for the rest of our lives. But we really think it needs to start at the waste management level. But then there's so many other things we can do. How do we get companies to repackage their products in packaging that's more sustainable? One of the products and materials that is one of our biggest nightmares is sachets. That's the multi-layered sort of like chip packaging, or sometimes in the US, like your instant noodles. It has a layer of plastic, a layer of aluminum, and then another layer of plastic. And so you can't separate the aluminum and the plastic, which means you can't recycle that material. So that goes straight to landfill. Some other products are really badly packaged and lead to, a lot of environmental disasters. So how do we, one, help brands like Nestle, Unilever, Danone package their products better? And also, how do we get governments to really play a part in this fight? Because it takes a huge amount of money and, like I said, infrastructure, time, energy, and trash isn't sexy. Nobody, and that's why Indonesia has not really solved it yet. They have other issues to tackle, education, infrastructure with roads, hospitals. But now we're seeing a switch finally. I think after 5 years of doing this work, on Friday, we're meeting Bali's governor again, for the third time in 2 weeks.
Congrats, man.
And he's finally, taking notice because of this trash wave that washed up on Bali's beach. I think he scared them a little bit because of our videos. I posted a video on my Instagram and it was like, "Welcome to Bali in 2025." And that video got like 75 million
He's
views.
like shitting his pants at that point. Like, this is not Bali, we promise.
The Ministry of Tourism is like, reached out to us. They're like, what can we do to support? I think that's the power of storytelling. It's, you never know who you'll reach. You can make a video that can be seen by, the most important people on the planet, and all of a sudden everything changes because that person's seen your video. And I think that's the beauty of social media. It has so many downsides, but the beauty of social media is that you reach anyone or everyone. And I think with this video, we reached the Ministry of Tourism. We reached the governor of Bali, and now they announced on Monday that they're banning plastic water bottles, single-use water bottles under a liter.
Wow.
That's a huge win for Bali.
Yeah, man. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I can't take the credit for that, but I mean, I think it definitely, like, we're pushing the right buttons and people are paying attention. But now we have to make sure this actually happens because some claims are made, and now we need to make sure that, like, we're behind them, supporting them, making sure that, all this hard work, it paid off. I think there's only really one way to get things done, and I think that's persistence.
Yeah, you're kind of hinting at like a more proactive approach versus a reactive approach, and I feel like looking back, having people jump into the rivers, collect trash from the barriers is like a great way to start. But it seems like now, through education with consumers, with governments, with brands, you guys are stepping into a new chapter where that educational piece nips it in the bud at like the core problem. So how have you guys been working with brands? I know that you guys run audits and you've audited over like 1,500 different brands. So what are you looking for when you're conducting one?
So I think it all starts in the sorting. So once trash enters a warehouse and we have 10 sorting centers, we want to, one, understand what is polluting our rivers. What are the general public using as a material or as waste, and why are they throwing it in rivers? And so by sorting into 30 different categories, we understand, okay, plastic bags is number one. That means okay, how can we work with the government to ban plastic bags? Number two, and like the list goes on, but then there's fabrics. Why are people throwing fabrics? Because there's probably no recycling infrastructure for fabrics. So how do we work with other organizations to build that? Sachets is a very close third, which is that multi-layered packaging. So how do we work with brands to make sure that they can package their products in single use, or not single use, but one layer? Then obviously plastic water bottles, hard plastics, metals, glass, all sorts of things. But once we sort by material, then we sort by color, and then we also sort by grade to understand, like, is this recyclable? Is this too deteriorated and too dirty? And then we have to wash, and we wash everything. But what we also really want to understand is who is responsible for this trash. Not the consumer. I don't think we can blame consumers at this point. We obviously can, because they threw it in a river, but it's not really their fault. They don't have solutions, and it's not really an individual's fault for not having a bin to throw their trash. I mean, yes, there definitely is education needed there. But inherently the government needs to step up.
It's more upstream.
I agree. I mean, yeah. And I think also the brands, like, why are brands providing all this packaging to people that only have one choice, but it's to buy the cheapest thing on the shelf that is multi-layered? And so what we do with the brands is we've analyzed over 2 million individual pieces of plastics to understand who is the biggest polluter. So for the last 4 years, it was Danone, which is a French company, but they're a multinational company, and they are the ones responsible for a brand called Aqua here in Indonesia, which is your water bottle. So the biggest water distributor in Bali. But then very close second, you have Wings, which is an Indonesian multinational, which is a family-owned company. They have no sustainability department. They don't really know, they're just profit-driven. Most of these companies, unfortunately, are, whether they're private-owned or publicly traded, they have, one goal, and it's to please their shareholders. It's to increase profits. And so, unfortunately, when you try to be more sustainable and you are trying to put planet first, your stock doesn't necessarily go up straight away. It's a long-term investment. And so I think that's really where we're really fighting for right now. It's how do we make these people understand that if we can't clean our planet today, it's going to cost you way more in the future to clean it up and make sure that we're not living in a waste world. And also, oil is a finite resource. We can't keep producing plastic at the rate that we are. We're expected to triple our plastic production in the next few years, and that's insane if you think about it. The amount of plastic we're collecting today is already scary. So there's I think that's the importance of data, is to really, we also want to speak their language. How do we show them that, we're not making anything up. We're just showing these companies what we're finding in rivers, and it happens to be your trash. And your logo is on every single one of them.
It's a consistent theme there.
Yeah. And I think also using storytelling to get this across, to really get them to feel ashamed and to feel like they now have to respond. When we released our report this year for the 5th time, the number one is Wings, this Indonesian multinational. They responded straight away. They're like, can you remove our logo from your post? We're like, sorry guys, but we can't really remove your logo from the hundreds of thousands of Wings products that we find in rivers. So how can we work together to make sure that this doesn't happen?
Wow.
How can you fund our cleanups? How can you build more deposit systems for your products? How do you package your products in more sustainable packaging? So it's very much, it's almost like we're becoming consultants for these brands and trying to figure out ways to, I think, plastic pollution is a really complicated issue. So we have to tackle it from as many angles as we can.
I just have this very vivid picture in my head of you, your brother and your sister fighting over 1,500 brands, just at the table. What a fucking beautiful cause, man. That is extremely challenging, to push the buttons of brands that obviously are going to be driving profit and have their shareholders to put first. And you guys are pushing buttons that are tough to do, but the storytelling component, like you mentioned, is such a unique part of that. When you're having a conversation with the brands, do you feel like it's succeeded in the past when it's been like more emotional through storytelling, or is it like the hard data that you found has resonated more to actually
Yeah,
make change?
definitely the hard data. So we haven't really seen the change yet from the companies. What's happening today, we just had a call today before you came with the Ministry of the Environment of Indonesia to use our data to now tax these companies on first of all, we need these companies to publicly announce how much plastic they're producing. Some of them don't even know. It's like they don't even care. So that's number one, to understand like how much plastic is actually out there, and two, to tax them if they go above a certain point. And that money should go towards cleanup efforts. So I think the data is now convincing the government to get involved and to find more EPR, which is, how can we really get these companies to take action? Again, because they're profit driven. So we're not there yet, unfortunately, where we're convincing the companies, but we're convincing the government to now tax the companies or to now convince the companies to do better. And I think that's where a really powerful relationship with the government is so important. At the beginning, we thought there's no way the government will help. They're already not doing anything. But I think it's just that, yeah, they're so busy doing other things. And we are in a very new country. Indonesia is only 75 years old. So how can we, if you look at countries like Europe or, the Scandinavian countries that know how to handle their trash so well, they've all been doing it for years. And, Singapore, Japan is incredible with their waste, but Indonesia, it's a nightmare. And so how do we really work with government as our main partner? I think the government will probably be our main scale-up partner. How do we make sure that we find the right system, but they're, at the end of the day, they should be doing it. So they're the ones that bring it across the country, and we just maybe help with the funding, we help with the strategy, but really we try to get them to do it.
Before moving on to the design component of the business, I want to dig into storytelling a little bit, because I think that's extremely relatable for a lot of people. Like the video that you mentioned that I think was like top 20 on Instagram last year. Like that is insane.
I don't know where I saw this, but it was an article that came out with, it said it was one of the most viewed videos of the year.
Wow.
Which starts with me and my brother jumping into a really dirty river. I think that shocking visual again in the first 3 seconds is important. And then being able to tell what happens from a dirty river to a clean river to sorting to the chair. I think the chair for us when we launched this it's like finally they figured out a way to recycle the trash. But sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're totally good. I'm just like, I know that for a lot of listeners and people and brands, like storytelling is becoming one of the only ways to really like market. Everyone wants to become a creator or, build in public. You've obviously done that extremely well. What do you attribute that success to? Is it just a matter of like 10,000 hours, putting in the iterations, learning how to catch people's attention? Or what would you say has led to that success, and how would you guide somebody that's looking to build that personal brand or their company's brand?
To be honest, I think it's just being genuine. I think so many times we see stories that feel a little bit forced and it doesn't really feel very honest. And we've never tried to lie or like tell a story that's not ours, and just being yourself. I think so many of my friends in New York are filmmakers, and they've tried like so many different concepts and series, and I think it's just trying it until you find that one thing that feels right, that feels like yourself, that feels like you, that feels like your angle and your storytelling, and then just not changing. And sometimes people will get one viral video, and I speak to brands about this all the time. Like friends of mine who have companies and they sell products, they have a video that has performed really, really well, but then they're trying all sorts of other things. And I'm like, why don't you just repeat,
double down
that one video that you did and just do that 20 times? And then they do, and it works every single time. And it could be a stupid
it's a
thing.
Secret sauce.
It is a secret sauce. I think when you find something that works, just continue doing it. And then also, obviously it has to feel right. If it's not you, then maybe continue to try. But for us, there definitely is something attributed to the 10,000 hours. I wouldn't say I spent 10,000 hours making videos and filmmaking, but I think I definitely struggled in New York, putting myself in front of a camera, speaking. I was a horrible public speaker, and I was horrible like at speaking in front of a camera. I had no idea. I was so awkward. I look back at the YouTube videos of me, and I'm like, oh, cringe.
Dude, you're fucking smashing it now. Like that's so
Dude.
cool to see, man. Like,
But I think it does come with training. It comes with practice. Like not necessarily official training, but just like putting yourself out there, keep trying. And then eventually when you do find that one thing that works, then I think people also like authentic, genuine energy. And if you're just yourself in front of the camera, people will love it. Like why try to be someone else?
Yeah.
And
It's very, very true. The content storytelling bit led to the design launch, which I loved hearing about. So if you want to explain how you guys introduced the first product, the reaction that it got from the community, and what you guys have been up to since.
Sure. So, we've been technically behind the scenes in this specific facility. This was actually our first ever sorting center. That's now turned Sungai Design, and we've grown 5 times in size. We've taken all the land around us. There's no more land we can take, which is good. Like Bali's developing too quickly, but but we very much quickly realized when we started sorting trash that trash has value. And I think it's this amazing resource that people often overlook or underlook. And when you throw something into your trash bin, you never really think about where does it go. And I think that's what people don't really understand and recycling has this term that's thrown around where you don't really know what it means or what's happening to your trash. And I think we being so deep in the rivers, and like so deep in trash and understanding like what types of trash we're finding, we just realized that we have 30 different materials that could lead to 30 different products. Like that was very quickly an idea that we came up with. But then very quickly we realized we can't keep doing this as Sungai Watch. Sungai Watch needs to focus on cleaning rivers, having as much impact as possible. We will sort the trash because that is important. But then we need to create another structure to try to R&D, research, and eventually come up with products made from the trash. And so Sungai means river in Indonesian. So Sungai Watch, river watch, we're always watching rivers and making sure that they're protected. And we thought about Sungai Design as our for-profit entity, social enterprise, that could buy the plastic from the nonprofit at 2 times the market price, so that Sungai Watch makes a little bit of money from the sale, because nobody actually wants to buy this material. So that's already money in as a donation. And then Sungai Design is now sort of like the lab brain of material science. And this is the factory we're in. And we're very much now thinking about how do we take trash and turn it into something cool.
So walk me through that initial ideation. You were sorting, you had different colors, and you were like, okay, well, what if we turn like the trash into products? Yeah. How did you get from that 0 to 1? Like buying the machine that we saw that's like freaking custom built piece of equipment that looks extremely intimidating. Like how did you get from 0 to 1 in that sense?
It's really not. Everything we have here is super low tech, actually.
It doesn't look that way, but yeah, I'm sure that's right.
There's a company that I believe it's Dutch. I'm not sure exactly, but it's called Precious Plastic. And so the founder of Precious Plastic is this guy that we've been following for a long time. We thought it was so super cool that he sort of invented a way to home recycle. So home recycling is essentially, you have an oven, you take some plastic bottle caps, you put the plastic bottle caps in the oven, you take it out after a few minutes and it's melted. And you can put it together and put it in a mold, and all of a sudden you have a keychain. So super cool. Like he was doing all sorts of really cool products. And we're like, whoa, like we could melt plastic and turn it into something else. And so that kind of opened a lot of ideas. And then I think very organically, someone in Bali got inspired by Precious Plastic and started building the machines he was using. Because also Precious Plastic, what they did, which is amazing, is they open sourced every machine. They put the blueprints online and they're like, you live in Ghana or you live in Colombia or Indonesia, like download my blueprint, build your machine yourself, and you can recycle.
Very cool.
And someone was building these machines in Bali, and we just approached him, and we actually knew him very well because we worked together on a few cleanups back in the day. And he was like, "Yeah, do you guys want to buy one? It's $5,000." And we're like, "We don't have that money." So we got someone to sponsor that first machine in exchange for like 100 products.
Wow.
And so that machine, essentially what it does is you have to take shredded plastics, put it on this machine, and it will press it and heat it up at a relatively low temperature, and you come up with a panel. And that's what these are made from. It's like a flat panel that is a 1 by 1 meter or 3 feet by 3 feet sheet. The thickness can vary based on the mold. But I remember, it was like right here about 3 years ago that our first sheet came out, and we're like, from bottle caps.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna be millionaires. And the only thing with these home recycling machines is the consistency is so off. So we gave him his 100 sheets. It was like the first sheets we made. I don't know where they are today, but probably looked awful. No, but I mean,
when you say they're inconsistent, is it like the firmness or
a variety of things? It's like it's
color,
a very small
obviously.
machine. Color, obviously, because recycling means we're not always, but especially at our level, you'll never get like no two chairs are ever the same. So like the speckle will never be the same on two chairs. But what is very different is just the thickness. Sometimes there's holes in the middle of the sheet because the plastic wasn't distributed very well. So that was like the first sort of step. We started making sheets, but we didn't really know what we were going to do with the sheets. And then very quickly we realized the sheets were warped. Then there's a whole science behind it. Every material has different density. Every material has different chemical properties, which means like, for example, PVC, which is your like credit card plastic, super, super toxic if you burn it, like super carcinogenic. So even just like learning these things over time, no one is teaching you this stuff. I mean, maybe a chemical engineer would know, but no one is really studying. I mean, very few people are studying plastics recycling, especially here in Bali. So we didn't know anyone that knew anything. Also, no one is testing the material. So imagine if you're making a PVC sheet and it's super toxic and you're trying to sell that. Well, that can cause cancer. It's essentially the new asbestos. Like we don't want to be that.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful. So we just learned. We learned by doing and met some incredible people who are doing this, but in different countries. And very quickly, not very quickly, actually, over 3 years, very long. A lot of headaches, a lot of mistakes.
3 years.
Yeah. And eventually after 2 years, we're like, okay, great. We figured it out. There's so much more than just making the sheets. Then you need to buy a CNC machine, which is that machine that you think is high tech, but it's really just cuts. You plug in your USB with your design and it cuts whatever you want. And then it's polishing. This is something that we didn't realize for a very long time, is if you want to get this smooth surface, you need to polish it like wood. So it's hours and hours of manual polishing.
Wow.
So we have like 10 people at Sungai Design every day, like that polish our sheets and that our different products to get this really good finish. And that's why it feels so smooth. And so this is a chair that's gonna last forever. And I think that's the beauty of this material. We're working with LDPE, low density polyethylene, which means that it's quite malleable. It's very versatile, and but it still is quite rigid enough where it can be a piece of furniture. And so polishing LDPE will get this like super smooth finish, whereas some other plastics don't have this type of finish. So just learning by doing. And then we launched a year ago and did that video that got 198 million views. And it was like so overwhelming, as a nonprofit, or having run a nonprofit now for, at the time it was 3.5 years. So filmmaker, nonprofit for 3.5 years, no idea how to sell a product, no idea how to ship a product, how to package a product. So we just, again, started from scratch, learned by doing. And so even furniture, I know nothing about furniture and design, but I had to learn. And it was an incredible journey, and we're still learning so much, and we're by no means we've by no means reached the point where we're trying to reach. Like we're still a tiny company and still not selling enough, and our production is way too small. And so now, like, we launched. That video got 198 million views. We got 600,000 people on our website the first month. 10,000 people add to cart. And we just like freaked out. We're like, holy crap, like this is crazy. Like
Wow.
we're about to sell 10,000 chairs, but we could only make 4 chairs a week. So I was like, for the next 10 years, we'll be making this 1 chair. But unfortunately, those 10,000 add to carts didn't all convert, or most of them didn't convert, because our shipping price was too high. Shipping this chair, which is a 60 pound or 30 kilo chair, to the US is approximately the price of the chair.
Wow.
And I don't even want to get into it now with the new tariffs.
Oh boy. Tough subject.
Yeah.
Sensitive. Wow. So very quickly you realize that there's demand out there.
Yeah.
And then at that point it's like ramping up the production, ramping up the team. One of the most beautiful things, man, and like doing a little digging, was seeing the 155 employees pictures on the website. Like you never see that. Like you go to a company's page and you see maybe like the 3 founders or like the management team, but you have a picture of every single contributor. And to me, that tells me so much about like the company that you're building and like the family that you're curating here in Indonesia. Can you walk me through over time how you've built that culture that seems to be, like, in walking through this facility, like extremely high energy, good people, and yeah.
I mean, that's the best part of the job. I think working with the people. We have such an incredible team, and from that first barrier that we cleaned, that my brother was cleaning by himself at the time, then we hired our first employee, who's still with us today, Pak Made, and we just needed someone to sort the trash. And so we hired him, and then we hired his daughter. And so I think one of the biggest values that we've sort of carried in this company is family. You know, we're 3 siblings that work together, that have worked together for years, from the media company, which is also the 3 of us, to this nonprofit, to then the Sungai Design furniture business. We ended up hiring, like, Sungai Design is probably like one big family. They're all like cousins and brothers and sisters and husbands and wives. Like, definitely has its issues.
Yeah.
They're like, someone does something
sticky.
wrong, it's like, who did it? And it's like, nobody wants to admit who did it.
Yeah. But what a good sign, man,
yeah.
to know that people want to, you know, invite their family members or extended family into a business like this.
And I think that's the powerful part, is that this is such difficult work. Like, you have to jump in a dirty river, pick up trash, and yet people are like, can you hire my brother? Can we give a job to my cousin? So we have probably like 10 couples, husbands and wives. Like, I think, actually, I don't know if this is, I need to check the numbers, but one of the most epic statistics is that our youngest employee is 18 and our oldest employee is 68.
Wow.
And we have, I think, our average age, I need to double check, but I think is 47. So like, we actually give employment to a lot of people who wouldn't be able to find jobs elsewhere, because, you know, they've reached a certain point where maybe in their late 40s, they can't necessarily work in a hotel anymore. They're looking for like the younger people. And so I think we're so grateful to the team that we've built, and like, we have almost 0 turnover. Nobody wants to leave.
Why do you think that is?
I think part of it is just the culture that we've built, that like, it really is fun to go to a cleanup. You know, it's not, you wake up, like, we start working at 7 a.m. So you start seeing people clean rivers at 7 a.m. because it's less hot. And we end at 3 p.m. And so it's really hard. You know, you wake up at 5, you like put on your waterproof suit, you jump in rivers, you get in your truck, you have to take off your suit on and off like 15 times. But I think they're so proud to be cleaning up their home island or their home region, because now we're outside of Bali. You know, an amazing story, like, for our employees, I think this is hilarious and I love it so much, is this is like the serendipity of living in Indonesia, working here. And I think just building any business, like, great things happen sometimes. We're scouting our new operation that we want to extend to in East Java. and we're just driving around, and we're looking for a welder to weld our barriers for the next expansion. As we start to hire the team, find the facility, welding is typically the first thing we do because we need to like it's a third party thing. And we just meet this welder and we're like, damn, this guy's so cool. And he's like has such good energy, speaks so well, so passionate. So we work with him to build the barriers, and eventually we're like, hey, so we're launching this program to clean rivers. Like, do you need a job? And he's like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll do it. So we hire him, and then we need to hire 11 others from the local community. And he's like, actually, I'm a martial arts instructor. Can I employ my students? And we're like, okay, like let's meet them. So we meet the 11 students, and they're all epic. And so we employ all of them.
Wow.
So I think we have now 26 of his students.
Oh God.
And
That is phenomenal.
He now leads a team of 55 people.
Wow.
From a welder that we met just like out of the blue, completely random, now leads our entire East Java operation.
Wow.
Which is 3 facilities, 60 trash barriers. It's just so funny how that works. You know, like I think it's all about people at the end of the day. Like being a good judge of character and seeing, you just kind of notice it when you meet someone. You're like, damn, this person's a good person. And sometimes in this space, that's all it takes. You know, like we need people who are passionate, because you can have the best resume, have gone to the best school, but if you're going to come to work and not be passionate about cleaning up rivers, this is not the right job for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a powerful story. It's, in my opinion, so cool to know that the first employee is still with you. The welder you met randomly has now 55 people under him. Like such a cool story, man. I think another interesting bit of this story is you started this company with your brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people would say there's like conflicting advice on that, right? Like don't get into bed with your family. There's obviously benefits to it as well. But I'm curious how that experience has been for you, what you've learned through that process, and if you would advise other people to dabble in that path.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, it's hard. I won't say it's like always easy. This is the 3rd company I've now started with my 2 siblings, but I think like probably what's the hardest is defining roles and responsibilities. And so right now, no one is CEO. It'd be very hard to, because we started all 3 companies at once, the 3 of us. We don't necessarily want one person to be on top. Although, you know, now we're actually, that opinion is changing. We're getting big enough where one person does need to lead, but it's not really about like the title or anything. Actually, titles don't really mean anything. It's more of just at the beginning when you're starting something, everyone is doing everything and you carry many different hats. And so defining the responsibilities is really hard because you want to do everything. And so you have to like put yourself in a bucket where it's like, oh, but this is not so fun, but you're the best at this, so you should do this. But maybe like, you know, you're the best salesperson, but you want to be in finance, but it's like, no, like you have to be in sales, or you have to be in sales. Yeah. So I think defining, I think we saw a real shift when we define our roles really, really well and very clearly at Sungai Watch. Then things started like flowing a little bit more smoothly, because otherwise you're stepping on each other's toes. There's that like family, you know, feud where, you know, obviously some small things can lead to big fights, and or the opposite, some like huge things you don't care about. So there's very different, but then you just, you know, learn to get through it. And once you figure out your roles, there's so much beauty in working with your family, because, you know, the 3 of us are so passionate, and I don't think I could ever find co-founders that would work as hard as they do. And I think there's also, because we're family and we're siblings, if one person works really hard, the other 2 feel like they need to work as hard, because they feel like it's that like natural support system. And also we have, you know, so much love for each other. So even if we have these specific roles, if one of us is super overwhelmed or is going through like a big personal thing and in our own personal lives, like we completely understand, and we let that person, you know, sort of like do their thing, and we'll take over for a certain amount of time. And so there's so much beauty in working as a family. Obviously, there's some hardships, but I think once you figure it out and once you realize like what is the small things that lead to the fights or the things that aren't working, everything is fixable. I think you just need to be pragmatic and logical about it. And then once you figure it out, I think the beauty over is much, much greater than the flaws.
Yeah, that communication, I'm sure, is just super important.
Yeah.
And you have two different roles at the two companies. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
CEO in one, COO or CMO at the other. Like, how do you prioritize time spent?
So we haven't necessarily dictated like your C titles, but we're more of just like we each lead departments. So for example, I lead the operations at Sungai Design, which is the furniture business. My brother leads the marketing. My sister leads the finance. And the three of us right now, so granted, Sungai Design is the newest company, so we're still doing everything. We're still really
It's all
trying to
hands on
define our
deck.
roles.
Yeah.
And the three of us are doing sales just because we need to sell. And then there's like other small things like, you know, I'm kind of taking over shipping. My sister's taking over some other things. My brother is taking over some other things. But obviously, it's also because we have less budget, so we can't yet hire external people. At Sungai Wash, the nonprofit, my brother is taking over operations, so he's taking over the day to day, like really dealing with the 155 people or like the 130 people. My sister is still handling finance. She is the more numbers person in the family, so sometimes it's also just based on what you're better at. And she's much more organized than me and my brother. And I take over marketing. So my brother and I switched because we both love both. We're both filmmakers. We both love to work with people. So kind of like the discussion when we started Sungai Design was I want to work with the team that you now work with at Sungai Watch. So how can we switch roles so that we still get to do both of the things we love? And I think that's also the beauty of starting your own company is you get to make the rules. Like there's no rules made for you. You get to do everything you want. And you know, sometimes it is hard to context switch from marketing and partnerships to production of furniture. But regardless of what role I had within Sungai Design, it would still be very complicated to context switch, go from making furniture and selling furniture to cleaning rivers and picking up more trash and having more impact. But so, yeah, I mean, we've split our roles, I think, very clearly. And now we're just figuring out how to. And I think strategy is something that the three of us play a role in as well.
You've built strong culture within the company and obviously have great relationships with your siblings. That culture extends outside of Sungai as well. You have communities that you've tapped into to rally, sometimes in the span of like 24 hours where you have thousands of people showing up. How would you describe that rallying sense? Like, how have you built a culture amongst external parties and the communities of different neighborhoods to get involved and to go out of their way to spend hours on a Saturday or Sunday to you know, give back?
I think a lot of that also comes down to the storytelling. So from the beginning, I think everyone is searching for some sort of community, and we are offering an opportunity for 1 or 2 or 3 hours to come and make your island a better place and a cleaner place. Now, not just island, but wherever you live. And I think people want to give back, but they don't know how. And so every Friday now, in 7 different regions, we do a community cleanup every single Friday, happening in 7 areas. And each team will host a cleanup. And we invite local schools, local governments, local businesses, or whoever wants to join. And I think it's like the consistency. So everyone knows that this is happening every Friday. And also people, I think Friday is good because it's like you end your week with a good deed and you start your weekend feeling good. And I feel like it was very, it was on purpose that we chose Fridays. And it kind of, yeah, I think it just grew. You know, at the beginning, our community was tiny. And now, you know, I think also by doing this every single day, people start to respect you a little more. They're like, wow, like you're doing this every single day. You know, they come to one cleanup, they're like, this is exhausting. So after
In
2
the
hours,
sun, like just get baked.
yeah.
Oh,
And then, you know, I think they respect the teams more than anyone for doing this every single day. And so the teams are always there. So every station has about 12 to 18 people. They're all there at the cleanup. And so they get to meet the team. And again, like, as I said earlier, it's not about your CV or who you are, but it's about your passion. And so you have 12 super passionate individuals that love their work. So when you're in an environment where you're surrounded by passionate people, you kind of want to go back. You're like, I want to be a part of this. And so now what's really exciting is we got a lot of like people saying, can I work with you? So they come to a cleanup, and sometimes, you know, they'll come to like 10 cleanups, 20 cleanups, 30 cleanups, and they're like,
wow.
hey, so any job openings? And like, obviously, if we see a volunteer, which we have come 20, 30 times, and we see the passion, then we might employ them. I think that's like some of the best interviews that I've had for like incoming staff is when they start the interview and they're like, I've been to cleanup. And I'm like, okay, great. Like that's the right thing to say.
Right.
If you're listening and you're applying to Sungai Watch, come to cleanup. Because like I start that interview and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, thank you. Like that's really cool that you've been to cleanup and that you care. Because other people just want the job and they just want the money, and you can tell they're not passionate. But like, so I think the community has just come naturally from doing it every week, and people just respecting the hustle, the work. They want to give back as well. And we make it super easy. You show up, you get gloves, you get a bag, we'll play good music. And after the cleanup, there's free food, there's free drinks. Sometimes that we even like partner up with different restaurants and different like beverage companies. Sometimes it's even free beers. And so it's like a fun activity that's also like, you get to meet cool people. I've had friends telling me they've met their girlfriends at cleanups.
Yeah, there we go.
Maybe I'll find my girlfriend at cleanup.
She's out there. The listeners, we got an eligible bachelor.
But so I think it's really cool to see community come together, and I think those are the best cleanups, when we go somewhere and it's really, really dirty, and you see it at first and it feels depressing. But then you just see like a swarm of people rally, and then you like slowly start to see the improvement. And then after a few hours, it's clean. There's also that sense of accomplishment that you did this together.
For sure, man. Giving people something to chew on together.
Yeah.
And an activity to like soak on. Like a lot of times you'll go to an event or something and you're just standing there, like a networking event or even like a dinner, right? Like it can feel very bland, but when there's a task that everyone understands and can contribute to, that feels so much more rewarding. And when you mix in things like refreshments and the storytelling component, where somebody might point at that beach cleanup and say, hey, this is like what I did with my Friday. What'd you do? You know, that feels good as a human.
And so how do you build community? You're a community builder expert.
Yeah, I think it's shifted over time, man. I think I've been in a place where I host those, you know, kinds of events that I mentioned previously, where it's like there's no purpose to it. And I've realized over time that the best events are experiences embedded in creativity or you know, positive psychology, where people leave, one, hopefully meeting somebody that they hadn't otherwise met, and two, with a learning that they can implement into their life, whether it be like a connection, inspiration in the world of entrepreneurship or creativity. And so, yeah, I think it's figuring out your unique skill set and the people that you want to attract. Something like Sungai Watch cleanup, you're attracting people that have a purpose and are putting, you know, other people's time before their own, and contributing to something larger than themselves. And when you have like-minded people that show up like that, a lot of times there's going to be that spark, because, you know, you're kind of eliminating that selfish dickhead that is, you know, maybe doing other things with his Friday or her Friday.
It's very true. I think that's all. I mean, you're completely right. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's your activities are, you choose to go somewhere. And so you're surrounded by people who've chosen to be there, who care about sustainability, who care about the planet, who care about the environment. In your case, you know, they want to meet like-minded individuals who are maybe super creative or super entrepreneurial and driven. And you don't find those people everywhere.
Mm.
Like running clubs are blowing up right now in Bali,
Yeah.
and it's just people who want to be healthy, who just want to run, and it's a very similar sort of reasoning. And I think that's it's probably one of the most beautiful parts of the work is building that community.
Mm. There's a lot of smart people out there, and we talked a little bit about this, that say, climate change is a hoax, and there's a difference for you between climate change and plastic pollution. But under that, umbrella is a lot of the same things, right? Like putting the planet first. And I've seen a lot of smart people that I respect basically say that, with natural disasters or, occurrences that take time, humans will be able to react, and you don't really need to worry about climate change or something like that, or even potentially plastic pollution. If you were given the opportunity, and you have it, to speak to those people, what do you wish that they would understand, and how might you craft that message to resonate based off of your experience?
That's a great question. What I typically answer when I get a similar question to that is, come to Bali and I'll take you to the dirtiest river, and then tell me you think this is not a problem. And I think it's obviously very, very difficult to do that. But when you've experienced it firsthand, and this is just like climate change, like you don't believe in climate change, go to Haiti and be there in the worst tropical storm with your house being flown away and your house is flooded and you lose your dog, you lose all your personal belongings and your loved ones, and then tell me you think climate change isn't real. I think the people who don't believe in climate change or plastic pollution or some of these big issues, like, they're sitting in their comfortable house in their living room, like scrolling Instagram and, they have probably, enough money in their bank account to probably live happily for the rest of their lives. And that's not always true, but I do think when you live, like I grew up in Indonesia and I've been seeing this problem persist and get worse over time. I'm speaking about 20 years of seeing it firsthand. And I can't make this stuff up. Like I lived next to a river and I saw the trash that was flowing down this river. And I'm 200 meters from the beach. I used to spend a lot of time on the beach as a kid, and it wasn't that polluted. And it started getting more and more polluted. And that's because we started using more and more plastic. Plastic is a new material. It was only invented in the 60s. So obviously from 2003 to 2025, we've produced so much more plastic. And so I think you have to experience it. And I think it's hard to convince those people to experience it, because then they'll blame other things. They'll say that it's like the tourists, or that the locals aren't educated, or that for climate change, that it's like just the fact that there was a crazy storm. Like, but once you experience that, it changes your life forever. Like you don't really, like, there's no looking back. Your life is now scarred. Like you've experienced something horrendous.
Little intermission. We grabbed some lights, and now have my laptop propping up two LEDs that I just bought 2 days ago.
Looks good though. makes this look very epic.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like a Halloween setup where we've got some spotlights, and the camera just died. So we're back. I was just asking you, we've talked a lot about Sungai, running across America, a lot about the businesses, but checking in on how Sam's doing, and how you're feeling in this time. And your answer sparked my interest, and I was like, all right, this is good. Let's pick it back up.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that most people, most of the time when someone asks me, how are you? I'll be like, well, we just scaled to this area. We launched this new product. But it's not, this job has become such a big part of me that I now almost think it's an extension of me, which no company is ever an extension of you. It's just something you created. But it's just, sometimes when you do this work, you have to be so selfless, and you kind of, you don't count your hours. You don't really care if something is happening. Like there's no FOMO happening with my friends going to parties. It's like you just do the work and that's it. And it's unfortunately become very much my life and like my top priority. And like relationships have been like lost because of I'm focusing too much on work. So it's very hard to do this work, but at the same time, it's like there's no other way. If we want to see a world without plastic pollution, it's not by doing this half-assed. You know, like you need to be like head down, working, you know, around the clock, obviously without burning out. But I love what I do. Like I think this is so fun. Like we were speaking about the teams. I love the team, and like that makes every day so much more worth it and impactful. So, you know, I'm good. But yeah, it's just funny how that works, where I just always speak about work first.
Yeah. It takes up that identity and is something you've invested so much into that it's all consuming.
And I'm sure you get this all the time with people, you know, you organize dinners with that are like founders and people that love what they do.
Mm-hmm.
When they sell a company or when they stop doing what they do, they typically, you know, will go through depression because that was who they were. And now they have to sort of reevaluate, what do they do? What does their day to day look like? And, you know, like I was just in London last week and I come back and I'm so excited to go to work on Monday. And I was like, this is great. Like I missed out on these things over the last 7 days. Like, let's catch up, like run me through this new design that we have. And it's like, yeah, it's really fun to be in this position, but it is very taxing and demanding.
And there's a lot of sacrifices involved.
For sure.
If you knew all the information that, or I guess all the time and the stress of building Sungai, would you have made that choice to go down this path, or would you have chosen a different path for yourself?
No, I would have definitely chosen this path.
Yeah.
I think it's so, you learn so much along the way. I think, you know, I went to university, but you ask me today what I used from my college years, not that much. Like, obviously it's great to go to college. I'm not saying don't go to university, but you really learn on the job. And I think, especially with what we do, no one teaches you how to clean rivers. No one teaches you how to hire people. No one teaches you, or how to hire people in Indonesia that don't have a degree, how to find people with passion, or how to scale, or how to recycle plastic bags.
Yeah.
So it's like there's so much learning involved, and I love learning new things, and like that curiosity is I think something that like I'll never lose, and I hope that I'll always have, because it always is the yeah, it's so fun. I would definitely go through all that hardship again, run across America again if you ask me.
Hell fucking yeah, man. Yeah. It's the curiosity, and then I think the agency too. That's another thing I picked up from you, is like you're extremely high agency in the way that there's so many problems without necessarily an answer. Like if you smell this type of plastic, you will die. It's like worse for you than, you know, cigarettes, right? And those things you figured out along the way just through pure grit and persistence, like you talk about.
Yeah.
Last question for you. I know you've been around a lot of other founders that are mission led and dabble in the space of, you know, making the world a better place. Are there any stories that you've come across outside of Sungai, friends or other founders that have made a real change, that light you up as a person?
So many. So I'm like, as you're speaking and asking the question, thinking in my head, like, who can I say? And I mean, I first think of people who have given up everything and sacrificed their whole lives for the causes that they care about. And I think of people like Jane Goodall, who, you know, as a 20-year-old went to research monkeys in Africa, and her whole life was revolved around like researching this animal that nobody knew anything about, and that actually are so similar to humans, and learning so much from that. Or like there's this one nonprofit founder that I love, like I follow very closely, and I am so inspired by them. His name is Jose Andres. He's CEO and founder of World Central Kitchen, and so he feeds disaster relief areas, and so he has like chefs, and himself is a chef. Like he's like an incredible chef, but he will feed and build kitchens in places that are like war torn in the middle of like the Gaza the Strip, and like his chefs have been blown up, and like he's lost a lot of staff, and like hearing him speak, like you hear the passion, and it's so inspiring. Otherwise, on the business sense, there's so many as well. You know, like obviously winning the prize with Ryan Serhant. Like I definitely look up to that guy. Like Ryan is such a hard worker, and you can find the videos online of him talking about what a day in the life looks like, and I've seen it firsthand. You know, he wakes up at 4, like he checks his email for like 30 minutes, and it's so funny. He's like, I want to win the day. Like I want to send you the email before you wake up. And he's just like, that attitude of like being so hungry and ambitious is really exciting. He built his own real estate agency from scratch. And he's built now it's like growing, and it's like, you know, number like 6 or something in New York. So it's growing really fast. There's this other guy that I had the chance to interview called Mark Laurie, who was the old CEO of Walmart e-commerce, and he, you know, founded this company called diapers.com, sold it to Walmart for like $2 billion or something. But I think just like people who are visionary, and he's now sold that company, and now he's like sold multiple companies, and now he's launching a company called Wonder. I don't know if you've seen them throughout New York. They're like a kitchen restaurant where you can order from Wonder, but you have like the choice of 8 restaurants. So it's like, but he's, you know, I think he just raised like $700 million. He's like, I think like the scale of thinking and vision that comes with something like that is really inspiring. And he's now also building a city of the future called Telosa, where he's trying to make like this equitable city with like perfect waste management flow. And like, I think people who think so big are just inspiring to be around. And so there's a lot of people. I think like I look more to people who have like given everything they have, not for money or success, but just for like a passion. And you could say the same with like artists and athletes. But yeah, I think those would be a couple.
Yeah, devoting their life to a higher purpose.
Yeah.
Led by curiosity.
Yeah.
Speaking of the future, what does success look like for Sungai Watch and Sungai Design media company moving forward in the next couple decades? Looking back, what will you be proud of, and what do you hope to accomplish?
I think we're just getting started. There's like so much more I want to do, and I think I'm very excited of where we are. I think so many good opportunities are presenting themselves at us. Now it's picking the right path and just trusting that we're going the right way. But like, I don't know. I feel like we have a huge opportunity on our hands on both companies, Sungai Watch and Sungai Design. On Sungai Watch, obviously, impact first. That's the priority, and I think that's what we want to focus on. But how can we make sure that Indonesia has proper waste management infrastructure in every region, in every island, in every city? How can you make sure rivers are not trash bins, that people are educated, that we have a right flow of trash and waste? I think we can do that in our lifetime. I think like plastic pollution is a problem we can solve before we die. And on Sungai Design, I think we're just scratching the surface. We're literally, you know, a year old. We've launched this cool product. We've launched the stool and a bench that's similar to this. And on Friday, we launched some small products. I don't know when this is coming out, but Friday, April, I don't know what the date is, but April.
April something. We'll say late April to give me a couple more weeks. Getting this guy out.
But so we're launching some like really cool, small like tissue boxes, some trays, some coasters, things that are a lot more accessible at a price point that everyone can just impulse buy. Like you want to give back to the cause, and you want a statement piece in your home that's maybe like a pop of blue or a pop of green from black or from blue or green plastic bags. You can get that. You know, like a tissue box will be about 120 plastic bags into one tissue box, which is really cool. But yeah, I think we're just scratching the surface. Like there's so many materials out there. And I think like when I speak about Sungai Design, I get so excited because right now we're just dealing with river trash. And the moment every river is clean and Sungai Watch has done its job and we can now focus on other things, let's jump into every landfill. Like there's so much trash out there today. I like to call what we do modern day mining. Like mining is obviously also a finite resource. Like we can't mine, you know, nickel for the rest of our lives, even if we need it for like the green transition and we want to like electrify every vehicle, and it's super important to have all these resources for batteries and things. Like eventually we're going to have to find a way to use what we have, which is the trash that we're consuming. And like we're now in a step at Sungai Design, we're doing our first serious round of raise right now. Let's see how it goes, but I'm excited because if we have this money, it means we can research each of these products, materials, things like styrofoam. Nobody knows or wants to recycle styrofoam. How do we make sure that that has an end life and can be turned into a product that will last forever? And we're sucking up these minerals and these resources from the planet, like oil and crude oil, to make plastic to use for 5 seconds and throw it out. The process that has to go through to turn crude oil into a plastic pellet, to then be extruded into a plastic bag, to then have that bag be used for a banana, and then you throw it out, like that's crazy. So why don't we use these materials that have had the biggest brains, the best engineers, the best scientists to figure out how to turn oil into a plastic bag, and how do we tap into their resources and their brain power to turn the plastic bag into something else? And how do we do that with every waste stream? There's hundreds of types of plastics, but there's really only 7. You can say whatever, like there's 7 to 12 really like serious types of plastics. How do we come up with a waste stream for each? Then glass, then all the types of metals and fabrics. So I feel like I almost see like Sungai Design as an umbrella company for 30 different subdivisions of materials, selling each different products. And then there's the product aspect, but then there's also the raw material aspect. What if we can turn bags into a raw material that everybody wants? So for example, we can sell pellet, we can sell sheets, or we repelletize the plastic, which is what a lot of organizations are already doing. But I mean, there's a lot of things I think that we can do that are very exciting, and we're just getting started.
I love it, man. Yeah, what a beautiful way to conclude this. I think seeing your story, man, spending a little time around you, like I can tell it's coming from such an authentic place. And in the world of nonprofits, like there's a lot of smoke and fog, and to actually be cutting through that fog and making change, inspiring other people, like it's really cool to see. So hats off to you, man.
Appreciate it, man. It's great to talk to you, and happy to have you in Bali.
Yeah, man. It's good to be here. If I'm somebody that, obviously, if I live in Indonesia, I can get involved with the Friday cleanups. Yep. If I'm outside of Indonesia, what are some ways that I might help if I'm inspired by the things that you've been saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we're fighting this issue, which is a global issue. So it starts with your own consumption. Really think about what you're using on a day-to-day basis. What can you cut out? In New York, they're reinstating composting in every household. So how can you make sure your food waste actually gets into the compost bin and not in the landfill? Because 30 to 50% of trash in a landfill is actually organic waste. So we can reduce the size of landfills in half if we compost. That's a very specific thing. But
good luck.
Yeah, and compost, then you should compost. But no,
zero waste is something you've tried too, right?
Yeah, and I did it for like pretty much a year in New York.
Yeah, I saw that video.
I think like that's like the very intense route, but like there's so many steps in between.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, be wary of your consumption. Obviously, if you want to support, there's a lot of organizations that do similar work to us. Do your research, support them however you can. If you're in Bali, come take cleanup. We do them every Friday. We have other opportunities as well, where we're now building a community center that you can come and visit and just learn about what we do in plastic and recycling. We're also, we're growing. So that means we need funding. So if you really like the mission and you want to support, donating is the best way to do that. So you can go on our website, sungaiwatch.com. Subtle plug. And yeah, just donate, because any money really goes a long way. We're still very small in the grand scheme of things. And if we really want to see change, that's going to take big money. So money goes a very long way. And then we now have this great furniture available that's shipping worldwide. So whether it's this chair, whether this chair is too big for your living room. If you live in a small New York apartment, we have a stool that's quite small, or a tissue box very soon, and trays and other small products. So sungaidesign.com. That's probably the best way of finding us. But yeah.
Right on, Sam. Well, thank you for hopping on the pod. And yeah, I'm sure this won't be the last time we connect and have a conversation, but keep doing God's work, man. Cheers.